you came here for a particular reason, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. I really am excited about the fact that for 3 days, we're going to engage in a conversation about women in leadership. And having this conversation centered around empowered leadership for women, especially those women who are already fully aware that they're capable and they want to make more impact, greater impact, or different impact, but there's a silence of the journey. And so I want to talk about that because nobody's saying it out loud or out loud in the time that's most relevant for people, or talking about it enough to prepare the road for people that are coming behind them, women leaders who are coming behind us. And I can truly relate. So I want to share a little bit about myself and my journey. I spent 20 years in leadership at the middle level, senior level, executive level, and I've served as a speaker, and I've engaged with leaders all over the country, and women in particular. I've had the wonderful privilege of advising executive leaders. I've stood on stages and been in classrooms and helping other people discover a plethora of things, and having the privilege to be a servant leader, which is really at heart for me. But let me tell you about a moment when everything about my leadership and the strategy around it changed. It was when I actually was elevated to a C-suite leadership role. I was actually catapulted into that role. And it was a position that many of us worked hard to be able to find a seat at the table to make the impact in which we were created to do, what we were called to do, who we were called to be. And so I was excited. And although on paper I had everything, I had the heart for it, I had the passion, I knew I was called to do it, and on paper I had the credentials, the expertise, the influence, and the accomplishments. But there was a little something missing. And I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with, and if you are, you can put it in the chat and say I'm familiar with a book that's titled, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Anybody familiar with that book? So I was there. So that was actually accurate. What got me there were some different things than what had gotten me to the previous role. But what I didn't have was a leadership journey trust. There was no executive coach, no sponsor advocating for me in certain rooms, no roadmap for navigating at that level of leadership. If you can relate or you've heard some stories of such, type relate in the chat for me. I just quickly realized that being qualified doesn't automatically mean you're supported. And I'll tell you, it was an inaugural position, my first executive role. So, of course, there was no blueprint for it, but there were people who could have walked that journey with me a little bit more effectively. So I found myself navigating unwritten rules, because we know culture plays a big deal, politics plays a big deal in it, enormous pressure, and expectations that no one had explained, or some people really couldn't explain. Often I was doing it alone, and I had to make a decision because I knew I was supposed to be where I was supposed to be, and I was going to do the work and do it well, because that's where God placed me, and I had to do it with excellence. And along the way of fumbling and figuring it out and being committed to figuring it out, I did have a couple of women leaders who were in the same boat trying to figure things out, and we kind of partnered together, and that was the beginning of building a leadership journey trust for myself. That experience taught me, though, something powerful, that leadership isn't just about competence. It's really about strategic empowerment. And that empowerment, I say strategically, because you have to be intentional about claiming it. And then we have to be intentional about creating the landscape for others to be able to do the same and not have to fumble around, but there's a strategy, there's a place of actually being, especially for women and even more so for women of color. So if you can relate in some form or fashion, type relate in the chat. I wish I could hear your voices because I'm sure that's what you're saying. Because it's a reality. It's a true reality, and it was not just me alone. Like I said, engaging with other women across the country, there's many of us, and there's many of us to come. So what can we do about that? Well, we've got to deal with it in the real. Research shows that, yeah, women representation in the C-suite has grown significantly over the last few years. So on the surface, yeah, for sure, that's progress. Sounds like progress. But at the same time, we got another truth, that 40% of senior women leaders say they feel unsupported in their roles and in their career. And I'm not talking women who just started their careers. I'm not talking women still trying to figure out their careers. I'm talking women already leading teams, women already making major decisions, women shaping organizations, and women who actually are transforming organizations, cities, states, and many of them are quietly navigating leadership without the support that they need and deserve. Again, if you can relate, type relate in the chat. I know many people can relate because I've had too many of these conversations. Hence is why I'm going live today. And if you think about it, what's really got me, in the core is that if this is happening at the senior executive level of leaders, imagine how many women earlier in their leadership journey, or starting in their leadership journey now, or anticipating their leadership journey, are feeling the same thing. Feeling the same thing. That tells us something important. That tells us something that it's not an individual problem, and that leadership reality for women has to change. If you agree that the leadership reality for women today and tomorrow has to change, put change in the chat for me. I mean, this has got to be resonating with so many people, so many women who are traveling this journey, or traveled this journey, or on the brinks of feeling like they want to give up on this journey. And one thing about this experience was doing it alone was that many of the people who were cheering me on before kind of fell to the wayside for one reason or another. And they weren't always men. A lot of times we're dealing with the context that the glass ceiling or the challenges that we have they definitely are a patriarchal issue, but there are other issues that we've got to teach each other how to support and how to grow and how to make space for one another to be the people that we're supposed to be and to carry out our purpose. So I recognize that many brilliant women leaders are ready for a greater impact, yet too often they feel undervalued, unsupported, marginalized, overlooked, ignored, misunderstood. There's a list. If you can think of a word that you believe or experience that women experience as they are developing themselves as leaders or as they are positioned as leaders, drop it in the chat. In this realization, I found that without mentorship, clear guidance, or a space to just be, not where you're code switching, not where you're saying there's a time and place for everything, but you can just be and speak honestly and build meaningful networks. Many women, unfortunately, though, are left navigating like I was, leadership alone, or with someone else who was navigating it alone and just trying to fumble around and figure it out. And what happens as a result of that, and I thank God that wasn't my story, but I want to make sure it's as many other women's, it doesn't have to be as many other women's story, is that women get stuck, dissatisfied, and uncertain about what should be my next move. I know that personally, as I've already shared. So I'm committed today in this new active life to help women leaders gain mentorship, build supportive networks. So we'll be talking about some of those things down the line of how I'm going to create that space. Develop the strategy and confidence to navigate leadership with clarity, purpose, and full impact. So just think about where you are, what you're called to do, and how you want to make a bigger footprint, and how the world is waiting for you to do that, and how the world is waiting for you to help somebody else do that. So I have a challenge for you. Each day, I'll give you a little tip. Each day, at the end of our conversation, I will be sure to challenge you. So I want you to write this sentence somewhere today. And you don't have to put it in the chat, because I want you to actually take some time to process it and mull over it. The leadership impact I know I am capable of creating is, and fill in that into the sentence for yourself. I'll say it again. The leadership impact I know I am capable of creating is. And be honest in finishing that sentence for yourself. But as you kind of think about that and think about what you would want to fill that gap in with, if you're comfortable, just drop one word in the chat that kind of describes how you're feeling right now, or how you're feeling about this conversation. I'm feeling hopeful. Always feeling hopeful, because I think another day gives us another opportunity to do something different and better than we did it the day before. I want to appreciate your comments, because they're great feedback. Just a little tickler for tomorrow. We're going to continue our conversation about why this matters so much, and break down some of the myths, talk about some of the supportive data that informs us how we need to work hard to keep many women leaders from carrying leadership alone. So I ask you to join me tomorrow for the continuation of this conversation. I hope you enjoyed the beginning and are intrigued